Dear grade 11 students, how are you all? We are going to continue our lesson from Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, written by Jonathan Edwards. This is the text of the sermon we talked about the last time. Background: Jonathan Edwards delivered this famous sermon to a congregation, a group in Enfield, Connecticut in 1741. Surprisingly, he spoke quietly and without emotion. It was a 6-hour sermon. According to one description of the sermon, he read the 6-hour work in a level voice, staring over the heads of his audience at the bell rope that hung against the back wall, as if he would stare into. Despite his calm manner, his listeners are said to have screamed in terror, and he himself had to stop several times to ask for silence. This is the text of the sermon, as you can see here. This is the case of every one of you that are out of Christ. Out of Christ means away from the path of Christ. That word of misery, that lake of burning brimstone. We said before, when something is full of fire and brimstone, this refers to hell and the torment people who go to hell suffer there, is extended abroad under you. There is the dreadful pit of the glowing flames of the wrath of God. Again, he likens head to a deep pit, a deep hole, which is full of the fire, which represents the anger or wrath of God. There is hell's wide gaping mouth open. He likens hell to any animal, any creature with a wide mouth opening its mouth to swallow those sinners. And you have nothing to stand upon, nor anything to take hold of. There is nothing between you and hell but the air. Imagine you are flying in the air and hell is spreading below you, down below you or under you. It is only the power and mere pleasure of God that holds you up. Just pleasure of God, the power of God holds you up, stops you from falling into this fire. You probably are not sensible of this. You're not aware of this. You find you are kept out of hell, but do not see the hand of God in it. You feel that you are safe outside hell, and you don't know that it's hands God that stops you from falling there. But look at other things. At the good state of your bodily constitution. You only look at your healthy bodies, your care of your own life, and the means you use for your own preservation. But indeed, these things are nothing. If God should withdraw his hand, they would avail no more to keep you from falling than the thin air to hold up a person that is suspended in it. If God pulls up his hand from under you, you will directly fall in fire. And you think that your money and your healthy bodies, your healthy constitution here has a new meaning. As we said before, it means healthy body. Your wickedness makes you as it were heavy as lead, and to tend downwards with great weight and pressure towards hell. And if God should let you go, if God leaves you go down into this hell, you would immediately sink and swiftly descend and plunge into the bottomless gulf. He likens hell to a gulf or a body of water with no bottom. And your healthy constitution and your own care and prudence. Prudence here means carefulness. And best contrivance, best planning, and all your righteousness. Everything would have no more influence to uphold you and keep you out of hell. Again, if God, or God's power and pleasure, is taken from under you, your healthy constitution, your care and your prudence, your best planning and contrivance, and all your righteousness, all the good works, the good deeds you have done, would have no more influence, will not stop you, will not prevent you from falling into this deep, bottomless gulf, hell. Then a spider's web would have to stop a fallen rock. Imagine that there is a fallen rock that falls on a web of a spider. Can the web stop the rock? Of course not. Were it not for the sovereign pleasure of God, it's God's pleasure that stops you from falling into this fire. The earth would not bear you one moment. Okay? The world would spew you out. Spew something like spit you out. Were it not for the sovereign hand of him who hath subjected it in hope that you would return to him one day. There are black clouds of God's wrath, God's anger, now hanging directly over your heads, full of the dreadful storm, and big with thunder. And were it not for the restraining hand of God, it would immediately burst forth upon you. The sovereign pleasure of God, for the present, stays his rough wind. Otherwise, it would come with fury, and your destruction would come like a whirlwind, and you would be like the chaff of the summer threshing floor. You will be swept by the strong wind in nothing if God doesn't protect you, or if you don't have the pleasure of God. The wrath of God is like great waters, a third picture, that are dammed. Imagine that there is a dam stopping the water behind it for the present. They increase more and more. The water is getting higher and higher, and rise higher and higher, till an outlet is given, until there is an outlet to this water. And the longer the stream is stopped, the more rapid and mighty it is its course. When once it is let loose, when this water is let go, it is true that judgment against your evil works has not been executed hitherto. The houds of God's vengeance have been withheld. God's anger has been stopped, but your guilt in the meantime is constantly increasing. And you are every day treasuring up more wrath. You are piling up more wrath. With your bad deeds, with your sins, you make God angrier and angrier. The waters are constantly rising and waxing more and more mighty, becoming more and more stronger. And there is nothing but the mere pleasure of God that holds the waters back, that are unwilling to be stopped, and press hard to go forward. If God should only withdraw his hand from the floodgate, it would immediately fly open, and the fiery floods of the fierceness and wrath of God would rush forth with inconceivable fury, and would come upon you with omnipotent power, strong power, powerful power. And if your strength were 10,000 times greater than it is, 10,000 times greater than the strength of the stoutest, sturdiest devil in hell, it would be nothing to withstand or endure it. And if you are 10,000 times stronger than you are now, this will not stop the anger of God from taking you. The bow of God's wrath is bent. Imagine there is a bow and an arrow. The bow is ready, or it is bent, and the arrow made ready on the string, and justice bends the arrow at your heart and strains the bow, and it is nothing but the mere pleasure of God. For the fourth or fifth time, the mere pleasure of God stops you or protects you from this. And that of an angry God, without any promise or obligation at all, that keeps the arrow one moment from being made drunk with your blood, from penetrating your body. Thus, all you that never passed under a great change of heart, by the mighty power of the Spirit of God upon your souls, all you that were never born again, and made new creatures, and raised from being dead in sin to a state of new and before altogether unexperienced light of life, are in the hands of an angry God. However, you may have reformed your life in many things, and may have had religious affections, and may keep up a form of religion in your families and closets, and in the house of God, it is nothing but His mere pleasure that keeps you from being this moment swallowed up in everlasting destruction. However unconvinced you may now be of the truth of what you hear, by and by you will be fully convinced of it. Those that are gone from being in the like circumstances with you see that it was so with them, for destruction came suddenly upon most of them. Those who died before you thought that they would not die the same way you do now, when they expected nothing of it. They didn't expect to be taken away by God's wrath or anger. And while they were saying peace and safety, now they see that those things on which they depend for peace and safety were nothing but thin air and empty shadows, and they are suffering now in hell. Don't be like them. The God that holds you over the pit of hell, much as one holds a spider, He likens you to a spider which is held by God, or some loathsome insect, some hateful insect over the fire, abhors you. The God abhors you, hates you, and is dreadfully provoked. You are making Him angry and angry. His wrath towards you burns like fire, because you do sins all the time, you commit sins all the time. He looks upon you as worthy of nothing else. You deserve nothing, you're like an insect, but to be cast into the fire. He is of purer eyes than to bear to have you in His sight. You don't deserve to be looked at by God. You are 10,000 times more abominable in His eyes, more hateful in His eyes than a person who's holding a hateful insect or spider, than the most hateful venomous serpent is in ours. Imagine you're holding a poisonous snake in your hands. Imagine how much you hate it. You sinners are like these snakes, and you are held by God, and He doesn't like you as if you're holding a venomous snake. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.